Hi, my name is Maddie Berger, and I want to share a few of my thoughts about the theme of marriage in Jane Austen's Emma. Okay, marriage is much more than just about love in the novel. If you were able to marry solely for love, you were lucky. And I mean, in Emma's position, she's wealthy, from a wealthy family. She's provided for, she's financially independent, so she's in the unique position to be able to marry solely for love, but most women weren't. I think we have to remember, first things first, the setting of the novel is on Emma's estate, Highbury, in England in the early 19th century, and this was a society where women were heavily oppressed. Most occupations were seen as inappropriate for women. Men were dominant, women were just expected to take care of the family, clean the house, so on. And other factors were usually a lot more influential than the factor of love in a marriage. Social status is really important, family is important. Social status was probably the most important factor to take into account when choosing one's spouse, but there were so many other factors: money and wealth, reputation, land, family. You had to marry to have a secure future. Women did. And there was this concept of the companionate marriage, which was designed basically to give wives true equality, both of rank, social status, and fortune, which that was ideal at the time. And George Knightley and Emma's marriage wasn't a companionate marriage. But I think love and happiness and values and all those things have to be taken equally into account. And while companionate marriages were ideal in the 18th century, Jane Austen gives priority to the happiness of her characters upon selecting marital matches. So George Knightley and Emma's marriage is ultimately a successful one because they occupy both the same social and financial status. And Emma knows that she is able to marry solely for love because of this, and a lot of other women weren't. Most women weren't able to do that. So I have a quote here, and at the beginning of the novel, Emma doesn't want to marry. She says, in chapter 10, I have none of the usual inducements of women to marry. Were I to fall in love, indeed, it would be a different thing. But I never have been in love. It is not my way or my nature, and I do not think I ever shall. And without love, I am sure I should not be a fool to change such a situation as mine. And what I get from that is that she's worried that this financial independence is going to be taken away from her, and she doesn't want to marry because she thinks she's persuaded herself that she isn't in love. And once she finds love at the end, I have a quote: "A few minutes were sufficient for making her acquainted with her own heart. A mind like hers, once opening to suspicion, made rapid progress. She touched, she admitted, she acknowledged the whole truth. Why was it so much worse that Harriet should be in love with Mr. Knightley than with Frank Churchill? Why was the evil so dreadfully increased by Harriet's having some hope of a return? It darted through her with the speed of an arrow that Mr. Knightley must marry no one but herself." So there is this factor of love, equality, financial equality, social equality, and ultimately that's why this marriage ends up being successful. So my next example is Jane Fairfax and Frank Churchill's marriage. And I really do think that they love each other. The concept of love is there. And I say it was less common because they occupy much different social statuses in Highbury. And Frank's aunt expressed disapproval that he wanted to marry someone so much further than him, so much lower than him on the social ladder, and that's why their engagement had to be a secret. And marriage was really one of Jane's only options. She could become a governess or she could marry to secure her future. And like I said earlier, I admire that Jane Austen matched these characters together, even though it wasn't very realistic at the time. I think that their love is the main factor here, and that's why their marriage is successful. They go through a lot together. It's kind of a tragic, romantic situation. Jane represents a typical Jane Austen heroine. She possesses all of the same good qualities as Emma: her beauty, her wit, her intelligence, and she deserves to be happy. And I think that their marriage is ideal because love is the most important factor in this pairing. And the last marriage is Harriet Smith and Robert Martin, which I think is so cute. I just think they're perfect for each other. They have the same values. They occupy this. I think that this marriage serves as a perfect example of how important it is to occupy near the same social status. So throughout the novel, Emma tries to guide Harriet just in the totally wrong direction. She tries to make decisions for her. She thinks that she knows what's best for her. And initially she guides her away from Robert Martin because she thinks that Harriet occupies a much higher social status than he does. She tries to persuade him by saying, she tries to convince her that Robert Martin is awkward and abrupt and that in the future he will be a, quote, completely gross, vulgar farmer, totally inattentive to appearances and thinking of nothing but profit and loss. Austen says that on page 77. And I think this is just Emma being like her cocky self. Honestly, I think that she wants to make her matchmaking status look better. I don't think that she truly cares about Harriet's well-being and her prospective spouse, but I think that she's just trying to make herself look better as a matchmaker and make her status as a matchmaker. She wants to show everyone that she's a successful matchmaker. That's what I think. But at the end of the novel, when Harriet starts making decisions on her own and starts realizing what she wants, where her values are, and she accepts Robert Martin's proposal, a second proposal actually. I love this marriage. I think this marriage is perfect. They end up happy because A, they love each other. B, Harriet ends up being the daughter of a tradesman, so they occupy near the same social status, near the same financial status. In chapter 54, Jane Austen says, quote, "The joy, the gratitude, the exquisite delight of her sensations may be imagined. The sole grievance and alloy thus removed in the prospect of Harriet's welfare, she was really in danger of becoming too happy for security. What had she to wish for?" So ultimately, all these factors that are stated, financial situation, family obligations, social status, money's a big one. Obviously, I do believe that love is the most important factor. These factors are all really important and should be equally taken into account. And this happiness that Jane Austen ensures for all of her characters, it looks different for each marital match. And I want to end with a quote from Mary Estelle. In the 1700s, she stated, "If marriage be such a blessed state, how comes it that there are so few happy marriages?" And I think this is because people were getting married for all the wrong reasons. More often than not, people were marrying for money, not for love. And I think that this love and genuine friendship, shared values, all these things are the main factors that successfully bind a man and a woman together in marriage and ensure their happiness. So thank you for watching me share my thoughts about the theme of marriage in Emma, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation.